And you know what's sad? I haven't even posted the other ones on YouTube yet. I need to do that. I just haven't gone
Well,
through them.
it sounds like you've just kind of been reoriented, reorienting to like a new routine, and then kind of giving yourself permission now. It's like now that you have less pressure, more time to let some of that pain just process and just kind of feel
Mm-hmm.
some of that weight
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and just
It's
I don't know,
yeah.
explore
Honestly,
it.
it's kind of a good feeling. It's been something I've been wanting for a long time. So, um, just uh, just the ability to feel like I'm resting. So, and I kind of knew that there was a chance that this would happen when I got to this point, because like uh, it's hard being nonstop all the time when it especially when you haven't had a chance to recover. So I wish I could explain. I wish I could describe all the struggles I've gone through, but and they're not even like really intense struggles, but like it's just the constantness of it, right? Feeling like you never had a break, getting no return on investment for any of your work that you've ever done. So, mm, but on another note, I'm basically finished with the next script of my video, which I haven't mentioned yet. It's going to be another flow of thoughts and feelings. It's going to be
Okay,
on, and I think I mentioned it last time, the flaw of psychology and the atomic layer. Um, so I think it's going to be a little lengthier unintentionally, but yeah, the atomic layer is weird because at that layer, it starts we start getting into questions about like what is consciousness, what is identity, what are the things that happened before we were born that led to our the way we process information now, and that is a those are deep questions, right? And we don't have answers for all of those,
but
but
it's relevant because
yeah,
it's relevant because it's like that's what your color thinks about. It's like the taste of food. It's like the colors that we like, and like there's almost. I mean, you can't do a brain scan on somebody and find out what colors they like or what food they
yeah,
like or what music they like. It's like because that's deep. I don't know. I don't even know how to.
it's just too deep, right?
It's just too deep. Yeah.
And you kind of have to be okay with the fact that that you can't get all the answers. Um, but the trick is though is that by when you start asking those questions, even if you can't find the answers, it leads you to other parts of yourselves that you wouldn't have noticed otherwise. So that's the main reason why the atomic layer is important. Even if we can't get much from it, it's because it leads to those parts that are potentially below the instinctual layer that you're like, oh, okay, that's why the way that I am that I, you know. So like I guess a good example is that like uh like with the trans debate, right? At the atomic layer, you can ask the question, are you born trans or do you only think that you're trans, right? Those are two different things, right? Um, uh, or like with cell memory, the idea that there's a theory that as cells pass on information, they also pass on your genetic code. So your personality is actually determined by your birth and who your parents were. But that also like includes their traumas, their anxieties, how happy they were, how well they did. So, um, right? So that's the thing is though, you'll never be able to parse out the difference between the nature and the nurture aspect.
Yeah.
So,
That's why it's always a debate, right? That's why you got. That's why it's like those. So the more and more I'm starting to realize those debates that have been taken on and taking have been going on in philosophy for for tens or for thousands of years since the beginning of time. It's like those are perspectival and goal oriented debates, not fact
yeah,
oriented debates. They're value oriented debates, right? It's like somebody's like, this framework of free will does a whole lot for me, therefore it's true, right? And then somebody's like, this determinism framework, it makes more sense in my science oriented framework, therefore it's true, right? And
yeah,
then you get that going on. And so it's like I'm noticing that those discussions, the ones that seem to have no resolution, nature and nurture, bring another one. It's like is it the way? It's like the answer is yes. It depends on what you're doing with it.
yeah.
What
Mm-hmm.
it does for you, how you see it. You know,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. I guess it's which side you
and
land
where
on.
you and where
Yeah.
you arbitrarily choose to draw the line in a certain
Mm-hmm.
sense.
Mm-hmm. And then another fascinating thing is that when you start getting it, you start recognizing when a lot of those answers are determined by which vantage point is necessary for you. You realize like a lot of the discussions don't really mean much, right? It's just like you're going to hear the argument again down the future from someone else arguing the same thing, and then you're like, you know what? Let them have their fun. No, they're discovering the answer for themselves in the way that they need to. So maybe by discovering the answer for themselves the way they need to, they discover on a kernel of truth that is necessary to expand human knowledge. So because they see it slightly differently than everyone else.
And that slight difference could make all the difference. You never know.
Yeah, you never know. You never know. So I'm getting too deep again. Oh.
Too deep.
Too deep.
Too deep. Vis-a-vis what metric though?
Well, I was about to say, I guess it depends on. I guess I was going to say like it kind of depends on what you believe, and if it's okay to let things be the way that they are. That's what I was going to say. So, you know,
But then you felt that didn't encapsulate enough of the nuance of what you were trying to say, and so you went a little.
yeah, 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 and then I was like, yep, no, no, we're. Uh, can I just say it's weird? And I know I've been kind of rambling, but I do so many checks and balances on myself too. Like, because I'll be like, I'll think a thought, but then I'll have a counter to that thought, but then I'll have a counter to that thought, and then I'll have a counter to that thought, and then I'll create a framework, and then I'll be like, okay, well, let me counter that framework, but then I counter that framework, and it's just, that's why I can't believe in anything ever fully anymore. So,
I think that's fine though, because I mean, even if it doesn't feel fine, because it's you're the one who says this. Sometimes like the only way out is through.
yeah,
Right, like all you can do is keep spamming what you're doing until you feel in your heart that that's enough. So it's like, all right. It's like something in your soul is like, I'm done digesting this mode of experience time. But it's like, and so it's like, I guess what you're trying to do with your FI and your NE is kind of, I guess, why the reason you're stuck in the limbo is you're trying to find something that sparkles or calls to you more strongly, that feels solidly like this is true, or at least true enough to anchor me in a workable identity, like a workable ego, right?
Sort of, sort of.
Sort of, but not quite.
I think it's I think you're making the connection, but it's like, so I guess if I were to sum up, I don't want to be the guy that ends up believing in the flat Earth society, right? Um, but the thing is that Fi and E are the kind of people who naturally fall into those kind of ideologies, right? They like to believe in woo woo, and I don't want to be the guy that believes in woo woo. But the problem is because of that experience where I dissolved all of reality. I guess in a way, technically everything is woo woo.
Mm-hmm. Everything's
uh,
moving.
but the problem is that if everything is woo woo, then it forces me. I'm also the guy that doesn't want to believe in woo woo. I'm kind of forced to believe in woo woo. But if I'm forced to believe in woo woo, then okay, which woo woo do I believe in? Um, and so yeah, it's a really weird so which woo woo I believe in? Should I believe in? Right. So that's where all the checks and balances are coming from. Is because if I believe this woo woo, I have to make sure I'm checking literally everything
Pros and the cons of each woo woo.
of each woo woo. Yeah.
Okay, so far on your adventures so far, are some what is your currently, and I know this is an FI thing, but I'm asking you to encode it in, I guess, TE and or TI language, and that is what. But I don't necessarily need to encode it in TI language. I think I can state it FI-ly. I think okay. What have you experienced? Is that SI? I don't know. It might be SIFI. What? Okay. While you're doing these checks and balances with the woo woos, which woo woos? Okay, like even right now, there are some woo woos too, and some woo woos who are further from. Why are you closer to some woo woos right now and further from some others? Like, what are the feelings or the experiences that you have? Some woo woos that draw you slightly closer to them, even if you can't hold on to them tightly, and other woo woos like the Flat Earth Society that push you further from them.
Okay. All right. So, and in order to come to reassert myself in reality, to to believe reality isn't woo woo, and I say believe as in believe. I had to recognize, okay, everything is a pattern, is a system and a pattern and a structure, and then the way that I feel, if I'm connecting with someone, if I'm talking with someone, we're having an interaction. In that interaction with that conversation, I am creating a system of flow of thoughts and feelings within myself from the atomic layer all the way up. And that is creating an influence upon my identity just by that interaction. So reality is real based on the process of me having experiences. Uh, but now, if reality is real based on me having experiences, I can also there's also systems that are real based on me having experiences, right? And so that means that I can essentially still I can even though I can create a false sense of what's the word? Uh Not a false sense of reality, but I guess I want to say modality, but I know that's not the word. Uh but basically I can it's as if it's like as if it's as if I am like an atheist but living with a spiritual framework, right? So I can still apply the rules of science and logic to the systems that we have in place based on how those systems function in how the world works today. So that also means with psychology that I can recognize the frameworks within a brain of how an individual can come to come to the conclusions that a system is real even though it doesn't match the widely accepted viewpoint of what the systems that we have learned about today. So, like, yes, there's an argument that the earth is flat, and and if you're in a specific vantage point, you can see that argument is true in the variables that they're using.
Mm-hmm.
But those variables aren't accurate variables. So because those variables aren't accurate variables, then that's not correct, right? So that's why I believe that the Earth is round, right? It has variables. There are systems that there are 4 or 5 different systems that verify its accuracy, right? And so it's kind of through that lens of I don't think I've ever explained this fully before, so it's actually kind of helpful. Um, but I guess it's just through that lens of seeing everything, being an observer of everything, of reality itself. I'm able to create um, I detach myself. I'm able to detach myself from everything, and that's how I see the viewpoints of everything. It's limited, right? The level 10 moment was the recognition that you can't detach yourself from everything, no matter how difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Pain is still pain. So,
Mm-hmm. And so, just like with that example you gave, where you could look and see, it's like the world in a certain way. These frameworks, in a certain way, can actually even be seen as a series of psychologies, right? Psychological frameworks, like even these systemic frameworks. So you see the flat Earth, right?
yeah,
And then you can see how they like you can see what that's doing for them, how that works for them, how it makes sense for them, how within this limited context, like they can relate and make sense to it.
yeah,
And you can see like the psychological workings, right? And so and so you can see like the equivalence, like the analogy between a systemic analytical framework and then the psychology that comprises that framework. Like the distinction between the two is almost meaningless to you to an
yeah.
extent.
Mm-hmm.
And so now it's like there's very little difference between you looking at like maybe say the ethical code that somebody has or the personal worldview that they have, um, and the personal worldview another person have or they uses, and really being able to prioritize one over the other, because it's like everybody has their own way of seeing things. Every framework, every system, big frameworks like scientific models or whatever, they're just more psychologies, more brains all work together. So it's like a big brain, but in a certain sense, it can all be seen as kind of like one big brain. And the flat Earth people are like one big brain, but it's a smaller brain than the bigger brain of round Earth, right? And it's like a smaller psychology, bigger psychology, but still the same fundamental rules apply to them that apply to them. They're just right have different motivations and value structures that kind of orient them here. And it's like so now it's like everywhere you see brains and values and perspectives and whatever, but you're kind of more or less detached, not entirely, but attached enough from it that you recognize that the reason you believe blue is because you want to believe blue is blue. And so even though you have these psychological frameworks that you can see, it's like you believe, it's like unfortunately in some sense you realize that you believe That the Earth is round, not necessarily because of the checks and balances per se, even though that is part of the reasons your FI has latched onto, but in the bigger sense, the one word answer is because you want to. And if you really wanted to badly enough, you could also be the flat Earth people over here. But you just know you're not over there. Not necessarily because of all the intellectual mumbo jumbo, but because your FI happens not to latch on to that specific formulation of FI mumbo, TI mumbo jumbo. But you could if you really wanted to. And the only thing stopping you from doing that is you. And so it's like, now what? Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you apply this to like religion, like what you said to religion, religion is very complicated the because religion is entirely based on what you believe, right? So it's hard to when you see that, I guess, reality. I believe that reality is real. We become detached from everything. You also become detached from religion. All of a sudden, any religion is possible based on just how you were raised, how you grew up, what you believe, how you feel, and which and it turns to like which church is true, right? But a more complex variation of that, where it becomes just like which reality is the truest truth and provides the greatest benefit towards the source, right? And the problem is that I haven't done a deep dive into religion to see which ones will come closer to the source, if there is a source, right? And that's another thing, right? Atheism is also in that calculation as well, right? The the anti of religion, um, and I guess I just try to keep everything open, man. uh, but it has helped me narrow down a couple things, right? So like when I say that like family is the most important thing, that's not necessarily because uh, it's not necessarily because I personally believe that, even though that was my upbringing and I was raised that, I did I did have to detach myself from that saying and be like, okay, why is the family the most important thing? What happens if we don't have a family? What happens if we do? Uh, what who do we become? What kind of people do we become? What kind of mental frameworks happen with families and without families if we don't have, depending on the framework that we believe in. If we grew up in Asia, if we grew up in America, if we grew up in Canada, if we grew up in Europe, if we grew up in Australia, if we grew up Saudi Arabia, right? What's the difference between having a family and not having a family? And again, I can't checks and balances, right? I have to be aware. I can't actually see all these things. I just have to consider the possibility. Um, but the end conclusion of all of that was the recognition that it's better to be in a family than not be in a family. And then same with like when it comes to it's better to believe in something than not in something. Like some of it was from personal, it's personal life. I used to believe these things. I had these thoughts. I had these feelings. I had these impressions. I heard great stories of individuals, of people, going beyond past what the expectations of people. So you had people who believed in their framework and their position, like the Wright brothers, right? And then they had tabloids that said they're crazy. They're not going to invent flight. Um, and then or the first man to run past to run faster than a 4 minute mile. Um, so it was just like a lot of there's a framework of people naturally not believing in things, but then like one or two people deciding I'm going to go against the grain and believe in it anyway. But what is belief, right? You can believe in many things. You don't just have to believe in yourself. You can believe in religion. You can believe in community. You can believe in God. You can believe in the government. But the underlying through line, like in my color theory, creating an underlying through line of all of it is that like when you believe in something, it propels you to do something. When you don't believe in something, you don't feel propelled. And so believing in something, whatever that thing is better than not believing in something because it propels you to be more than who you are now. Uh, Whatever that thing is. If you believe in your individuality, if you believe in yourself, if you believe in the power of I am, then that is fine. It's just, it will do the same thing as if you believe in God. But even then, with checks and balances, the interesting thing about believing in God is that it actually creates a sense of delusion to where you can actually cut out the pain and cut out the sorrow, and it lasts till the end of time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So believing in a God actually does a little bit more than just believing in yourself. But even though that the differences is very slight, though, like we're talking about like 49% to 51%, right? But those differences can create a lot. They can change a lot. So, and I guess another example I have is just like I say it's better to be religious than non-religious, right? One of that is one of the reasons, right? But the main reason I usually say that is that like if you have sets of communities that form together, um, again, what are the children like? What are the parents like? What are the families like? And the overall conclusion I came to was that religion creates preset patterns of habitation and belief systems that when you teach your children, they will then follow along those patterns, and those patterns will lead to, I'm going to say success, but it's not necessarily success. It's more like self motivation and self fulfillment, right? Uh, so if you're religious into like if you say you believe in everything and you can become anything, well, the thing is that if you become anything and everything, one of those options is you can become nothing, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can just let yourself let your let yourself become the crack addict or the heroin addict, right?
There's a quote. There's a quote
Right.
from, I think it was G.K. Chesterton, who says that the main danger with not believing in God is that you believe in nothing. Is that the main danger of not believing in God is that now you become capable of believing in anything.
Right.
Right. So that was what warning he gave.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
resonates with what you were just.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So and and that's another thing that touched on another thing, another part as well, is that like so is taking crack and heroin okay? Like if you're going into an individual framework, level 9 or level 6 and level 9 framework, and being like, yeah, everyone can be whatever they want, they can do whatever they want. I mean, does that mean that I should, if I wanted to, take crack and cocaine, right? No. Should I take heroin because I'm enlightened and believe in God, right? And because that's what I want to do. That because I because I have an understanding that other individuals decline, and trying to be specific, right? They decline in their motivations from taking these, from my observations about detaching myself from reality. Then I can be like, that's probably not the best decision. What I want to do is try to choose decisions that either keep me neutral so that I'm happy where I'm at, or propel me forward if I want to be better, right? So, not, and this is kind of hits level 7 where not every decision or not every choice is a good choice, right? Not every
Mm-hmm.
decision is a good decision. You need to have
It's it's
a sense of self
it's like the
identity.
ascendance, like the ascendance to godhood. I'm gonna equate that to free.
Yeah.
Right, it's like the attempt to expand your domain of agency. Right, and it's like crack cocaine diminishes your agency, your optionality in the future at the price
Mm-hmm.
of bliss today. And it's like, well, I would like to have bliss today and tomorrow without expending my agency.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. But but that example also highlights that, and the one with the family, that there are lists of behaviors and choices that produce better results, and lists of behaviors and choices that produce worse results, right? And so that means that, and I have to say that it's likely, right? Because life overall isn't fair. Stuff just happens randomly. You may be a star athlete, you get in a car crash, and then all of a sudden you're in a hospital bed for the rest of your life, and it was just random. But just because of that, that doesn't necessarily mean that, like, there's always something you can do to try to be better and improve yourself. But the thing is, there's always things that you can do to become worse. And those are also things that I've analyzed and trying to put into the process of everything. So, um, yeah, I'm starting to hit the edge of it. The amount of considerations I've taken into trying to formulate the considerations I've done, um, into everything. Um, but yeah, and the thing is that the flow of thoughts and feelings. This was part of that, right? This came about, that came about as part of all of this interweaving interconnection of how, not just how thoughts and feelings flow together, but how everything flows together, how systems flow together, how people flow together, how individuals flow together, how, like, relationships flow together, right? um so, and this this was the kind of thinking I did in my relationship, which is ironic that it didn't go the way that it did, even though I technically predicted that it would. um but
Like you
uh
both predicted that it would and couldn't care enough to shift. It's like no, it's weirder.
uh
Like you
so
predict.
if you want to frame a reference, I was doing all this thinking at level 6. I was level 7 at the time when I dated my ex. And the so I was able to start honing in on the variables that were needed and the variables that weren't, so I could get more specific and accurate into how a thought processes work. And but the thing, ironically, what makes it even more ironic is that, like, I didn't see the full picture. And it was all fueled by anxiety. Um, I was able to subconsciously project how the relationship would go, but I, in on the surface, was working to try to avoid it, and so I started doing things to try to avoid it. But that actually ended up propelling it further. But the thing is that I didn't. It's like I kind of knew that that was going to happen, like, subconsciously. So it was a really weird event. I don't know. Maybe I had just a set of omnivu, but um, that messed me up too, because I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't. I predicted how the relationship would work, and it didn't go in my favor, and I still went with it anyway, and I hurt myself anyway. Um, so yeah, but yeah, I don't know. It's not worth it to think that deeply into everything. So, and you can only predict so much. That was another lesson I learned too. Like, yeah, I predicted the overall idea of how the relationship worked. I didn't predict every interaction or instance. Um, so yeah, and I can't predict everything as much as I try to and wanted to, and all that anxiety. again, I attribute to me being adopted when I was a kid because because I was trying to search for that connection. Well, not well. It's more complex than that. Because of that disconnect when I was adopted, it created a classic, an innate sense of distrust and disconnect. And so, uh, the way that I thought that I had to get friendships was what I had that high level of that perfect idealization of a friendship, right? Because of the NIFE or the NEFI. The way that I thought I could get friendships was just almost like manipulation. Just if I could be the exact person that a person wanted me to be, then I could be the best friends with everyone. Uh, it didn't really work. I was still super introverted and anxiety ridden. But that was the philosophy I had. Not that I was aware of it. Um, and so, but no, I don't think like that. Well, I think like that, but that's not like the core of my philosophy anymore. I try not to think like that anymore. So,
Do you feel that if you actively try not to think about that anymore, it will take longer for you to feel satisfied by the experience of thinking like that, and then longer have to actively try not to like that?
you were cutting out a little bit, and so I didn't catch all of it, and it seems like it's an important question. So,
So you describe yourself as the way I'm understanding it is that. Can you hear me now? By the way,
I can, yeah.
okay. Feels like you are actively trying not to think that way anymore. And so you'll be going about your day, the thought will arise, and then you will guide it or direct it elsewhere. And so my question is, do you feel that in manually and consciously preventing yourself from thinking that will that will pro that will extend the time that will extend the time no, yeah, I'll just go with that. That will extend the time that you will have to. No, okay, let me back up. Path. I'm not liking the way that's coming out this time around. I'm thinking too hard about it. All right. Gonna phrase it the way I did at first. Do you feel that in actively trying not to think about it, that you are going to extend the time that you are going to have to suppress yourself from thinking about it, rather than just letting those thoughts and the actions that come from those thoughts and behaviors manifest themselves in the real world, letting that experience permanently shut off that thought loop automatically? So instead of actively thinking to yourself right now as you're talking to me, the thought that you said that you try not to think, let yourself think it right here, right now. Let it manifest as a behavior, maybe for the 17th quote unquote mistake, right? And then maybe the 21st or 22nd mistake, like you experience your FI and your SI or whatever else, finally just goes, all right, F this forever. And it's no longer even something you manually have to turn off, which liberates some of your cognitive libido or energy to focus on something else that it needs to shut down or turn on.
uh,
Are you trying to be too wise? Should you be a little more stupid on purpose?
oh man, I don't know. I think part of the issue uh, is in my 20s and like in my 20s when I worked those 70-hour weeks, well, and also that level 10 moment. a lot of me is just kind of like I just kind of let things be now, right? So that kind of thinking can come up every now and then, and I don't like it when it does. But I don't think in those terms as much anymore because I'm less anxiety ridden. But also, that thinking can come up when I'm trying to analyze a person's level, for example. Um, and so, I do agree. I don't think, but I agree that the answer is probably to be less wise. But I guess the question is, how do I go about that safely? Which is the wise answer, right?
Uh, it's the same. I'm seeing the problem with recursive, right? Because the exact same thing. It's like, yeah, it's recursive. Because now the question you could have just asked me, right? It could have been like, well, how do I know that the right way to become less wise is to continue to wise max until that no longer works, and then I no longer have to consciously turn that on, right? To turn
Yeah,
so it just back up a step. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah. That's the right answer.
this
Possibility.
is a possibility. I am just I am who I am, I guess. So, but I will say I've never felt comfortable being able to share this whole thought process with anyone. So that's actually been this has been therapeutic, unintentionally. So thank you.
Yeah, it's
I'm not sure if
absolutely
this
my
is
pleasure.
what I'm not sure if this is what you were going for, but
No, just chilling with a friend,
just
just
chilling
vibing.
with a friend. So, um, but I hope that helps make it clearer just how many connections I've tried to make to come to my conclusions.
Yeah,
I guess they don't come from nowhere, and I'm not always right. That's one thing that's kind of held me back too is that I've recognized that like yeah I have a big very I have a big interweb of everything, but not every point is accurate. And also, I don't know everything as well. You know, I fill up a lot of assumptions, and like I've never studied. I'm not a psychologist. I always say that I'm not a psychologist or a therapist. That I just use my own intuitions based on all the interconnections I made on myself. Right. So because that over complexity I've also used within as well. Right. Like why do I think this? Where did that emotion come from? Where does that emotion come from? If I think this emotion with that emotion, no, why do I feel that way? Um, uh, and so, and that can be wrong as well, because my intuitions can be wrong, my emotions can be wrong. But again, I've been better at accepting when I'm wrong. I've better at recognizing recognizing the questions that I can't answer, because that was also a big one too, right? Because I get onto a question and I try to that led to that was partially that led to the 0 point. Is because I get onto a question about the nature of reality and I try to answer it, and I'd go deeper and deeper and deeper. Like the example I use is like why is this quantity two, right? Why is
mm,
the number two, right? And
mm-hmm,
I'd get
mm-hmm.
stuck on that and be like, well, you know, there are so many different vantage points, you know. No, this why is this not two? Why is this not two? Um, it took me a long time to recognize that, like, yeah, I asked the question, you know, that helped me get deeper, but I get no value from the answer, right? This being two is perfectly fine and it fulfills my purpose perfectly. I get no value at all from knowing why it's two in the grand scheme of things.
And this
So,
like for 99.9%, you
yeah.
can't even flex with that, right? Can't even be like, I wanted to know why two was two, and then it's like it doesn't even get you aura for most people.
yeah, yeah. So, um, but it and yeah, but this also it also led to that I think we talked about last time like the sense of being the outsider, right? Not being able to connect with people.
Yeah.
Ironically, the by doing all of this, it detached me even further. Because
And you are both you are ethnically distinct from your siblings as well, correct?
mm-hmm,
Yeah, because they're
mm-hmm,
Caucasian and then you're Hispanic.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And I don't think that really did like. I don't think that that did anything overtly, but it did lead me to existential questions when I was like 8 or 9, right? Like I'd sign a government document and it'd be like, "What's your nationality?" I had no idea. It literally messed me up. Oh, so yeah.
Mm.
So there you go. That's not just my life story, but like my how my inner world used to work. So why I guess it's a lot of why I am the way that I am today.
A sizable section.
A sizable section. Hmm. So and it was that kind of questioning that led to the 0 point as well. Because when I say I considered everything, like yeah, I was trying to consider everything. So
And there was at some point that you realized, suppose, that even desire in everything came from the atomic and pre-atomic
could
level.
you your sound is cutting out again. Sorry.
Thank you for letting me know. Give me a moment. Let me unplug this.
Yeah.
It might be that way.
Yeah.
All right. Can you hear me?
I can hear you right now. Yeah.
I was like, and it might be in a certain thoughts, feelings connected. Like, was it the case that at some point you had to realize that your own desire to question everything was itself, in some sense, sourced by the atomic layer or the subatomic, pre-atomic? It's like there's no not only do I not have an explanation for some of the questions I'm asking, I don't even have an explanation for why I want to know.
Yeah. Uh Funny enough, not fully, but I think that's also partially because I didn't know I who my birth parents were, so I couldn't even consider the possibility, right? The possibility came about of my birth parents, maybe their influence influenced me, but because I had nothing to go off on them, I didn't know. Um, also, looking back, my understanding of myself wasn't complete as well. Um, so like yeah, I was thinking all those thoughts externally, and I was trying to understand myself, but my understanding of myself wasn't complete. Remember, I was doing level 6. I was at level 6 at this time. So while I'm doing level 9 processing, that doesn't necessarily mean I knew everything. Everything. I just built a framework to be able to. I just was able to create a framework to be able to handle everything. But when it came to myself, like I didn't know that what I was doing was because of anxiety. And I knew that I was depressed in the past, but I didn't think that what I was doing was a byproduct of depression. I was just doing it, right? I was just analyzing. I was just thinking it. Um, I remember how it started, which is funny enough. It was when I began to doubt my beliefs. Uh, and that was actually funny enough one of the key factors that led me to recognizing I was INFP in the MBTI system was it wasn't by recognizing that I had NEFI in the front. it was recognizing my demon Ti, because I started that when I was like when I started questioning my own belief and value system. Did what was what I believed actually true? And if what I believed was true, does that make me a good person? You know, right? Uh, if other people have different belief systems, what makes them better or worse than me? That's the Ti demon is when you start comparing your value system to other value systems. So and yeah. Now the question is, did that happen because I was depressed, or did that start because the be or did it make me depressed, or did I start that because I was depressed? It was probably because I was depressed that allowed me into a position to be able to start thinking that, looking back on it. Um, but yeah, that's how I realized I was INFP, was because of the TI demon. Um, not necessarily because of the NIFE. So, or the NEFI. I keep switching that up. Um, and honestly, there's a part of me that thinks that there's a potential, and this is NE, right? Which is ironic, but there's a potential that I might not still be INFP, because if I've had all these issues as a kid growing up, then how do I know if it's would if I was raised healthily or had a different viewpoint, would I have, if I was healthier growing up, would I have had a different belief system, I guess, or would I have been more comfortable with who I was? And if I was more comfortable with who I was, would I have been more naturally natural in my own, I guess, personality state, I guess. Uh, and that's kind of an atomic question, right? I can't
That's kind
answer
of
it.
that's a nature and nurture question.
That's a
There
nature
is
and nurture question, right?
never a definitive answer to those.
Right.
You arbitrarily
Yeah.
divide the line somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
That's an atomic question. But by asking the question, it lets me deeper, right? So, um, I think if there's, and again, check, if there's one thing that led me to possibly thinking that I'm level 9 and not level 8, is that I feel like I have conclusions to all of the thinking that I've done. Um, which I don't think is a, I mean, it's not like it's not a level 8 thing, but I feel like level 8 is still somewhat in analysis mode. Level 9 is like you extend out so further, but then, yeah, it's non duality, but the answer is non duality, right? There are conclusions that you start forming at level 9 about like the nature of reality and life and such. Um, that the other levels don't necessarily believe because they can't see everything that you see. Um, but yeah, and it's weird because level 9 answers, they're full of wisdom, but they also seem prophetic. Because I guess in Odalef's system, you're able to see the patterns of how human behavior works and how everything, and you're able to and see how systems influence the patterns and how you can change the patterns and how the patterns change. And so, like, yeah, level 9 is full. They are wise, but in some ways they also seem prophetic. Um, so, ugh, weird. You got me monologuing again. Keep, careful. If you ask me a question, I will answer. I'm mostly an open book. So,
I've I've had the I've I've had the experience often enough to know. I have observed the pattern often enough to predict the likely result of me asking you a question, and it's all part of the appeal of interacting.
All right. Well, as long as you're enjoying yourself, as long as you're
Mm-hmm.
happy just listening to me, I guess. Um, hmm. Well, I guess let me turn it to you a bit. From all of your observations, not necessarily about me, but like from you're interconnecting everything too. Let's enjoy it. What do you feel is the deepest information that you've learned so far?
The deepest information that I have learned so far, the point that my FI has latched onto, it's like every phrase I'll put out there catches like a different aspect of the experience, but none of them encapsulates it entirely without kind of excluding other connotations. And the one I can use is controversial. Okay, so I'm going to start with the most controversial one.
Let's
The
go.
one that a year or two ago would have put me off and did when I saw AJ use it first time. The realization I came to is that I am God. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I have frameworks and understanding the nuances around what that actually means
Yeah.
and what that means to me and why that matters. Because my primary struggle, two primary struggles through the entirety of my life was when I was younger. I was raised very religiously, and
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that there was a God. I did not know whether me or the people I cared about would ever be able to measure up standard. I was raised, as you know, in a perfectionistic uh, branch of Christianity, Christian perfectionism, which
Mm-hmm.
teaches that if you want perfect, you don't get to heaven. And so, when I was 9, and I internalized that, and I found it really significant when I had a panic attack. Right? And then when I got over my panic attack, I realized I was like, oh, it's not just me. Even if I do everything I can to make it to the afterlife, I'm like, what about my parents? What about my siblings? What are the odds any of them are going? And I felt this obsessive urge to like save myself and like from the damnation of God.
Yeah.
Right. And then I realized that I couldn't. And I just felt this despair, you know. I'm just like I can't do anything. And that sense of just I guess helplessness just permeated like my entire mindset. It's kind of bled through the rest of my psyche like a cancer. I guess
Yeah.
those I guess it was 4 years after that when I realized that black and blue were my two favorite colors. So I was 9, and then I was 12, 3 years, I guess. 9, and then nine's about the time blue became my favorite color. It was red at that time. And then by the time I was 12, black and blue became my favorite color combination, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it was kind of was just that was a combination of that, like the trying to look too far down, like I'm trying to consider and but that's when I describe myself as having gone from level 3 to level 4. About the time I was 9, I was like, oh crap, I'd better shape up and behave myself.
Yeah.
Like I'm playing for keeps here. Like this is serious. And then as I got older, I realized more and more the investment I was putting, despite accessing different denominations, different religions, different frameworks, different arguments. I had, and I shifted to more, and I shifted to less stringent forms of Christianity, right? Because they didn't have Um, kind of going back to, I guess, pretty much for the same reason you don't believe in flat Earth, right? I was like, oh, I like the argumentation that they make that they wrap this around doesn't, cohere and so moved, and I did have a strong enough commitment to quote unquote objective truth as I perceived it to be willing to dispense with a lot of my frameworks as I moved throughout my life. Um, but there came a point where, because I have read and dabbled with all the major world religions. Like I've read the Diamond Sutra, the Lotus Sutra, and like over 100 lectures from like Buddhist texts and the Tao Te Ching, and I've read a sizable portion of the Hindu Vedas, right, and the Mahabharata and Bhagavad Gita. I've read the Bhagavad Gita, and I've read some portions of the Talmud, and I've read, my own Christian scriptures several times, the New Testaments, and I've read some of the Apocrypha, and I've read Church Fathers,
Mm-hmm.
and then I've read a little bit of the Hadiths of the Muslims, right? And then I've listened to lots of secularists and atheist scholars. And as I went through all of that, I guess the second thing that I'd begin to realize is that almost nothing is, it's like, I could make a logically coherent argument for virtually any position on the planet given my star.
Yeah.
Like I'm losing any grounding I have to privilege my religious conviction, the coherent framework of any other position. So why do I stand where I stand? And despite everything I've seen and everyone I've interacted with, why am I still right here? Despite, everything. And I realized, I believe what I believe because I don't have choice. I'm a very existentially needy individual.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing I fear more than nothing. And so I need something. And of all the somethings I currently have access to, I'm like, my current Calvinist religious, of all the frameworks I found, resonates one that requires me to make the fewest amount of epistemic or emotional jumps, right? It's like the closest one to me. But I was aware of that. I was like, the closest one to me. I was like, had I been anyone else, Catholicism could have been closer, Islam could have been closer, atheism could have been closer.
Yeah.
This was the closest one to me, and I'm like, and I can't escape that to me. I'm like, I can't escape the to me. I'm like, I have all these arguments, I have all these points of data. I'm like, but this TI framework I have is also arbitrary. I'm like, why should I prioritize logical coherence and consistency over rationality or inconsistency? And that's what I gave you that example. If there's either truth or there is no truth, and if there is no truth, then it's not, and if there is truth, then right, and I kind of played that game, and basically I made Pascal's wager, right? But I was aware of what I was. And I was aware that I was making Pascal's wager. Not Pascal did it. He framed it as the difference between heaven and hell. Right? It was like, if you don't believe in God and there is a God, you go to hell. But if there is a God, you go to heaven. So the gamble, you can only win. But that's not the way I framed it. Because at this point in my life, I would have called myself a Christian existentialist. And at this point in my life, I remember telling somebody one time, I was like, even if I died and went to hell, that would be more a relief to me than to realize and to see that all of this means absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
So it all just means. So even that would be a reward to me.
Yeah.
I said no, I wouldn't like it. No, I wouldn't. But I'd be like, at least it mattered, and it mattered forever, right? It wasn't just a wash. And so I was like, okay. I'm like, so that's why but I was like, but once you're aware of that, you can't really lie to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you can't, however much you might want to, you can't anymore. And so that was the first major existential crisis I would describe was the one I had where I was 9.
Yeah.
It was when I hit level 3 to level 4. I was just like, oh, if I don't behave, if I don't act in accordance to the principles of God, I'm doomed. And then I realized the futility of trying to save everyone.
Yeah.
Just realized, like, this is too big, I'm too small. There's just no. And that was mm, that was there was a it's like you have the 5 stages of grief, and I think what happened is I remember um I remember panicking. Right, I that's when I was watching my hand movements, my breathing, my eyes. I was trying to
Yeah. Oh,
um I became like very aware of like my mortality and the mortality of the world around me and everybody else's. And it's when like I realized I had an ego. I'm like, there's a me. Like
yeah.
there's a me of all the possible people in the world that look like puppets to my perception. I am one of them, and they have an experience like I do, looking out of the world behind their skulls the way I do. Like they, and so I'm obsessed. Like looking at my hands and my, what is this? Like who put me in this flesh puppet?
Yeah.
Like I did that, and then I got angry because you got the stages of grief. Right, there was the denial. Like what the fuck? This is real. Like, what's going on? And then there was the anger. Like I got angry. I was like, I didn't ask for this. Why couldn't I have been a cat or a dog? Like I never asked for this challenge.
Yeah.
I asked the need to be perfect. I never wanted. Like why do I have to get damned? Right, right. Like why do I have to be a good Christian? Like why do I have to follow these rules and these codes? Like, a
Yeah.
dog doesn't have. It's like a cat doesn't have. Like angels don't have to. Can I have just been an angel? Right. And I was like, and then so then it went. I don't remember if I ever hit a bargaining phase. I don't know what that would have looked like, but I do remember hitting the grief or the depression phase. And I don't think I ever truly hit acceptance, right? I don't
Yeah.
think I ever truly, I think logically I did, but emotionally, going based on what I understand about like the color psychology and stuff, and how later on, my favorites became like the blue and the black, right? I
Yeah.
think what happened is I just stayed in the depression phase and never stopped grieving. And then, so I guess that was the first seismic shift. And then the second was when I realized that from a logical perspective, from a lot within a framework, some things were arbitrary
Yeah.
and some things had frameworks. Like with once you chose a paradigm, a perspective, or a goal, there was such a law. There was such a thing as logical consistency, and it was coherent. But any of those, but each and every one of those starting points, those goals or perspectives were entirely arbitrary.
Yeah.
Like that's when I had my second crisis, right? Where I was like, maybe it's turtles all the way down, and all of this nonsense means nothing. And
Mm.
um, and then what happened with me is that based upon my experiences, based upon my access to the different religions and the atheism and this, that framework and that framework, I found a couple of things, and a lot of this I put down in the in Zian's thread on illuminations,
Yeah.
and that is what I did was I did have to go for a period where I had to hope without believing. Right, that's when I came across you.
Yeah.
Was when I hit that about a year or two after I solidly hit the existentialist phase, and I was just kind of like I stand right here because I can't do anything else. I can't go anywhere else. I can't believe anything else. But I also couldn't preach it to anyone else. I
Yeah.
couldn't proselytize. I couldn't because I knew how arbitrary my starting point was. And so to anybody who would ask, I'd be like, hey, here's where I'm at. Here's why I'm at. Like, here are my biases. I know why I hold this position. I can't do anything else. Here's my value. Here's how I see truth. Here's why I hold on to morality. Yes, I know it's as arbitrary as anybody else's starting point, but what else
Yeah.
can I do? Like, this is
Yeah.
where I think this is.
Yeah. Yeah. You
And then
you didn't have a ground, I guess,
yeah,
and I guess for you, it seems like for you, this was kind of your world crumbling. Like you're, you didn't think of all reality going, but like you didn't have a stable point to base anything off of.
yeah,
So yeah.
and and so So in the course of that, and me trying to find a solid point to base everything off of, is when I had maximized my emotional suppression. Right, when I told you
Yeah.
about the cloud of human emotion, I was just like, my goal. I want to see with the eyes unclouded. Like I need to see. I need to see as objectively as humanly possible. And so I'm like, well, what's the best way to see? It's like, well, all the philosophers I'm always reading talk about the hindrance emotion is to critical, analytical, objective thought, right? So I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, if I suppress, right, my emotionality to the max, then perhaps I can see clearly, right? But
Yeah.
but the world is nothing but experiences, right? And
Yeah.
emotions are part of those experiences. It's just that all the way down. It's like there's no such thing as an objective, not from a human perspective.
Not
And
for me.
so I realized that that fog I was trying to see through wasn't a bug of being human. It was just it was a feature. Like that's what it meant to be, right? Be
Mm-hmm.
human. Um, was to have perspectives and biases and values, right? And then that, but it's like a combination of all those experiences with philosophical arguments. With the guy whose book club I started, right, was he gave his own like analytical idealism, like his understanding of how using the materialists, the atheists, like own framework. How there's a stronger TI framework you can build on top of their own framework that actually makes from my perspective, like a more coherent case for world being soul or mind or spirit
Yeah.
rather than matter. Matter being a subset of spirit, not something separate from it, like a monistic spiritual framework. It's like that, um, like that enabled me, I guess, to do several things: to let go of a version or an understanding I have of God that was as, I guess, tyrannical and as judgmental
Yeah.
as the one I had held on to. Because for me, it's kind of like a binary. It's like if I'm going to hold on to this framework, I need it to be as logically and as consistent and as close to the source as possible.
Yeah.
It's like and so I'm like I'm like the progressives are too logically, they're too emotional. I'm like there's too much of their wishful thinking embedded into their theology.
Yeah.
I'm like with the fundamentalists, there's lots of hardcore stuff that they hold on to. I'm like, but it's easier for me to defend each point analytically,
Yeah.
logically. I'm like logically, I kind of tie it all together. And I was listening to a researcher recently who said that autistic people are less likely to be religious, but if they are religious, they are more likely to be a fundamentalist than a progressive.
Yeah.
And I was able to relate that to my own experience, and I was like, oh, and I know exactly why. I'm like, because the fundamentalists, right, I like almost invariably have a much stronger narrative script wrapped around the religious structure than the progressives do. Progressives is going to be more experiential. It's going to be looser. They're growing out of the religious framework and they're stretching it, and it's not, and your logic starts to break. The chains start coming loose.
Yeah.
Whereas with the fundamentalists, it's usually it's more closely bundled. And so, um, and so, and then it, and so, my intuitions that were cultivated, I guess, on my exploration around different religions, different frameworks, different experiences, NEDs, uh, religious conversions, this, that, and the other. What mind and matter actually are, made it to where when I understood what sages and the prophets and what high level people on the server meant when they talked about things like love, things like consciousness, things like whatever, I was able to make it plausible that this, when I understood and like actually internalized things like space and time, quite possibly not even having any standalone existence outside of creature perception and
Yeah.
interaction. Like my belief that everything is going to disintegrate and become nothing. My belief that there's going to be a heat death to the universe.
Yeah.
Like my belief that everything's going to wind down without my strict adherence to some kind of god, like being right is ungrounded. Like
Yeah.
that too. Like even that is ungrounded. I'm like there's room for hope and exploration and possibility, and it's like and to believe that like love is eternal. Right?
Yeah.
It's like that the same love, the same agape, that the same energy, that whatever it was that brought the universe into being at the beginning of time can bring the world back into being or start something entirely new at the end of it. I'm like there's no TI, no consistently logically like reason for me to really believe that all this physical. I'm like like this matter, this material stuff, when it winds down, that will be the end. Like
Yeah.
because evidently it wasn't the first time around. Because here we are, and so it was like, and so that gave me space to be like, like eternity might not look like the way it was when I was a kid,
Right.
but it doesn't have to. It can look like God only knows what. But so long as I know, it's like that love endures, so to speak.
Yeah.
Consciousness is the foundation of all being, and I can, and I feel like I have legitimate reason to actively believe it, right? So I will plant my flag here. I will say I believe it, right?
Yeah.
Um, and 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 just like the guy in the book club I was doing before, just like how he has his own logical argumentations that he wraps around using the materialist's own frameworks for arguing position. I can do the same thing. I can do the same thing.
Yeah.
But ultimately, that's not the reason why I believe. I believe it because based upon my needs, my person, my experiences, my intuitions, like it just resonates. Like it makes
Yeah.
sense. It's like aha, oh, I see it. It's not I argued for it necessarily. It's like, oh, I see it, so to speak. And so um and so very long-winded way of me answering the second realization, the third realization. First realization I had is um first realization I had is we're all doomed. It's like we're practically like everything's doomed and we're all fucked.
No one's
Second
going to
realization
heaven.
I had, and yeah, basically yes. And second realization I had is there might not even be a heaven and hell, and that's even worse than us all being fucked. So now we're royally fucked, right?
Yeah.
And then the first realization I had was the third realization I had was hold on, wait, like I am God,
Yeah.
right? As like and the same primordial FI that got this whole ball rolling. If we could do it once, it could do it again and again and again and again and again and again forever. And maybe that's the eternity that everybody's trying to look for when they just try to describe it in their religions. And that's the best way that they can wrap our little human minds around it. And I'm like, and I have enough faith. And I've got enough faith to believe that. So we'll just keep going.
Let's keep going, man. You know it. What is in your story? I'm curious. What is Fi demon for you? Like, because that's what it sounds like your first experience was. It was and even your second experience. Um, because
Yeah, my go ahead, finish the question.
well, no, you finish your thought. I don't want you to get lost in your thought process. I guess.
We'll finish the question because my this next thought's going to bounce off your question.
Oh, I guess the reason why I was asking is I guess I don't understand what an Fi demon would feel like. I guess, and so I was trying to gain perspective.
Okay.
So
All right. So all right. Okay. I think I might have a little bit of insight into that. It's complicated because of it's going to be difficult for me to communicate because of the fact that I do believe that FI is everything, even TI.
right, right,
Right. So I'm going to make a somewhat arbitrary distinction here between personal FI and cosmic FI.
okay,
Okay. And so first experience, what happened was so um, what happened was is I think part of the reason why I was able to move through those stages of grief so quickly, except for the last one, is um, is that what happened was is when I was angry and I was like I didn't ask for this blah 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 right. That was a very short period of moments because what happened was is I actively dissed like my own whining. I was just like, well, who asked me?
yeah,
I'm like, who asked me? What does it care what I want? What does it care what I better? What does it care if I never had the chance to ask? I'm like, I was like, that's not the way this. Evidently, that's not the way this system runs.
right,
And so I was just like, stop your sniveling, get up, behave yourself, carry on, right? And so I disliked it, like it was bothering me,
yeah,
and I looked with disgust on the fact that I was emotionally bothered, that I was so emotional about it. And I'm like, you weakling, like you stupid weakling. Like, this is the truth. This is the narrative. This is the story. It's like, get your act together and get back in the narrative. Get back in the plot line. Get back to
Yeah.
the TI story, like TI narrative. Be good. Behave yourself. Live according. Be perfect. I was like, and your stupid emotions don't get to have a vote.
Yeah.
Do the thing, right? But from cosmic FI perspective, that's still FI because TI was a certain kind of value point, but it's a
Right.
value point towards the narrative, towards plots, towards the plot,
Yeah.
and less about me as like you have like plot based stories and then you have character based stories, and TI biases plot over narrative, and so over character. So what I did is I prioritized the plot of my thinking over my personal character in that story. So
Yeah.
I was like, I am a character in this story, and if I'm in this story, I need to be this kind of character. Be a good character for the plot. Do it for the plot. Do it for the plot.
Do it for the plot. Okay.
And so, but because it was out of resonance with my personal FI, it made me miserable. Right?
Yeah.
It's like, but do it for the plot. And if I don't know if you've seen what's his name, Dr. K's recent video on high functioning depression and how that becomes a thing.
Yeah.
It's like what he described there in that video is like what I had done for those 17, 18 years over and over again. It's like no matter, like even switching frameworks, even switching models, even switching whatever, I was just like, do it for the plot. Like your character is irrelevant, do it for the plot. Your character is irrelevant, do it for the plot. Do it for the plot. And whatever. And even when I adopted a new plot, and I was slowly getting closer and closer to a plot that could accommodate my character, because I think that's how TI gets closer to FI, but you slowly find plots that actually accommodate like your character, and so you slowly work out a balance between a plot based story for your life and a character based story.
Yeah.
It's only a character based story for your life. It's slice of life. There's no narrative. It's kind of chaotic. It's kind of wherever. Like you just where are you going? What's it about? You kind of have to manufacture this. Like, but if it's all plot based, then you become a puppet to your own machinations, right? And you become an automaton you become your own worst tyrant, right?
Yeah.
And so those are the two extremes. And so over the course of my life, it's like a closer between me as a character, FI, me as a or me as a, and see, you can't escape FI as a character in the plot. So that's the way I would describe it.
Interesting. So your plot line and your character began to align together, and so
Yeah.
it became a feeling of completeness.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah. Like the cognitive dissonance is gone. Like the depression is gone. Like the nihilism. It's like the fear. It's like all of it is just. It was just like home. Snap.
Home.
It was like plot, narrative, FITI. Here we are. Found it.
That's so cool. I think and I'm trying to compare my experience to yours because I know it's very different. But I think because the TIFI difference, it's this kind of fascinating to just kind of observe, right? Because the closer I get to TI, the more I feel distance from myself, right? And so because technically everything is FI all the way down, right? So if I'm trying to use TI to understand everything, it creates a sense of detachment. So I feel less complete and less whole. And I guess I'm wondering if that's true for everyone or for every FI user. And if that's true also for a TI user, if TI users, if they get to this point, are going to feel that sense of completeness because of that understanding of their own emotions and that wholeness. So,
and this could be the point of so many debates in Buddhism, in Hinduism, even in LC, like between you and right now, maybe like when he describes, it's like, well, after you get to stage 11, your ego does this, and it's like, well, no, an ENTP ego does
Yeah.
this, but at that same equivalent stage, the INFP ego does this, and it's like at the next stage, when you hit stage 74, your ego does this. And it's like, no, an ENTP's ego at level 7-4 has a higher probability of doing this, but an INFP ego at stage 74 has a higher probability of doing this, right? And it's like,
Yeah.
how much of that is a projection of our own personality, nurture, nature distinction on our spiritual journeys, and less an indication of, it's like, how much of that is okay, let me think. How do you put it? You talk about how, like, psychology, like everything that makes us human, that makes us the same, right? So how much of describing in these religious, like these transformative experiences, uh, how much of that is the same because we're all human, and then how much of that is different because we're all different kinds of human,
Right.
and how can we know?
Right. So yeah. But like even now, like you're where you've landed is still technically a belief system, right? It's your belief system, right?
Yes.
So, and it's a belief system that unites yourself wholly, right? And and I guess I feel like I would need to find another INFP who's level 9 to to try to
Compare,
swap notes
contrast.
with. So, because I guess there's two aspects of it, right? You know, we've always mentioned that each level has a positive variant or a negative variant, right? And that can be true all the way up. And level 9, you know, if you have full enlightenment, which would be the white, then the opposite of that would be black, which would be the void, right? So,
Let me see.
and this is all
INFP,
theoretical still.
INFP, FITI, character plot.
Hmm. Sorry, I didn't mean to go down that route. It's just where my brain ended up.
Yeah, I'm just gonna let it, just kind of let it sit back on my mind. Just beliefs system, because how do I put this? How do I put this? I feel like there is now a perfect harmony between what I believe and what I want to believe.
Yeah.
Like I have found, and it does not. And I still access the space. Like I still circle. Like I'll probably always circle a little bit
Yeah.
just to make sure I'm updated, to make sure, like even at the risk of stabilization, to see anything that I feel causes. Because that's what I did when I was already comfortable with a religious person. Is I still looked around and was like, okay, what alternate worldviews and perspectives can I came that can challenge me that I might want to adopt or defeat, right?
Yeah.
And it's like even now, like what other experiences, what other frameworks, what other models can I adopt or switch to that would cause like or that would like that could cause my current framework or current understanding to give me more cognitive dissonance or to feel less viable or to inform my FI about an actual location that feels better, resonates more strongly with the one that I'm in. But it's like any move. Okay, so December 14 is when I consciously took your advice to hope
Hope
without
doesn't
believing.
have to make
Right?
sense. Yeah.
Hope doesn't have to make sense. Right? That was December 14th. Right? Wild night. So after that, of course, my temptation as an INTP was to start trying to build another narrative. It needs a plot. TI needs the damn plot. It's like, where's the
Yeah.
damn plot? I always want the damn plot. It's like, all right, now where's the damn plot? And the natural progression was like whenever my mind would shift away from my existentialism. Are you familiar with Near Automata? The story of Near Automata.
Yeah. I know the story.
Okay, so that's the music from there is my favorite. That's my favorite story plot line. Period.
Yeah.
It's like, so it's either existentialist Christian or Near Automata. It's like
Yeah.
human extinction, everything goes, plot death of the universe, the moon explodes, sun explodes, and it's all over. Right? This or that. And so the moment I was like, hope without believing, it wanted to go back to the nihilism. And I said, no. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
No narrative, no plots, just vibes.
Just
Right?
vibes.
That's just vibes. We're just gonna Delulu max this. So no beliefs, no non-beliefs, no cynicism, no acceptance, no criticisms. Just hold space. Just hold space. Just feel. So we do that for several months. I would say it has it. That process didn't stop until the 4th of July.
Yeah.
Right.
So
So
it was
for
for
those,
6 months.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And so December 14th, July, um, and it was just go about your day. Don't believe or disbelieve anything. Just feel. Just let. Like you've spent years analyzing. It's like you were in the position you were in the first place because you spent so much time analyzing different worldviews, different frameworks, different belief systems, different values, different right. Is like, and all of that led you like. It's like there were, for as far as I knew, there was nothing left to be searched out. I do not think it would be an overstatement to say I've probably watched maybe 50,000 hours of like debates and things from different perspectives, not even my own perspective. Maybe
Yeah.
5,000 from things I believed, maybe 45,000 from things other people. Just hours of
Just hours upon hours.
years worth of content of content. It's like, and all of that's brought you to this. Like no more of that. It's like your higher self, if there is a higher self, sort all that out in its own good time. Just vibe, right? Just hope, no belief.
Just
Just
hope.
let your FI just kind of do its thing. And so, and so, what? What happened was, is I let my FI understand, like for itself, I guess what it meant to be free,
Yeah.
what it meant, right? And I just let it find its home. And then when I found its home, one of the structures I had discarded and no longer believed was already molded as a narrative to come right down over that experience, contextualized. Right? It was like it fit. So I was trying intentionally to mold this philosophy around my Christian faith, right? And
Yeah.
it wasn't fitting quite right. I couldn't get the TI work on it. I was like, I can't get this. Like the glove doesn't quite fit. There's too many pieces. I was trying to modify. The moment I modified this, something would come apart over here. So I tried to fix this, and I was like, I can't get this to. Like, they're not quite compatible. I'm like, I'm like, if I give up this, it's Near Automata, right? Like, and I can't, and I refuse to live in Near Automata. Like, I refuse to do. And so it was one of those weird things where I had to like surrender, like even my life raft, right? Because I would consider that to have been like the life. It was like my life raft metaphysic, right? This idealist like
Yeah.
thing. My real boat that I was sailing through the storms of existential crisis was my Christian faith, traditional Christian faith that I was given, more or less as a child. And so I threw them both away. I was just like, I'm done with you, right? I'm done with you. Like you failed me. Like we're done here, right? It's like what? It's like we're just. I'm just like I don't know what's going to happen. It's like I was like I'm not in control of any of this. And then after that experience on the 4th of July, it's the like the the dingy little life wrap. It's like I had so many more like experiences, like a deeper understanding of what love was,
Yeah.
consciousness was, of of just like really what it meant for humans to inhabit time and space through help with like you and understanding dream psychology, right? Um, a deeper understanding of like what it means for something to share like field of consciousness, and consciously I wasn't connecting this to any of my old frameworks because like I had discarded those. It's like I'm just going to
Yeah.
hope without believing anything, not good or bad, not the near automata materialist story,
Mm-hmm.
not the Christian story, not the Bernardo Kastrup dream consciousness love story, none of it, right? Just hope, no belief, just to do the. I mean, the INFP for a while, just to. And then when I had that experience, when I saw God with my own two eyes, right? It was like I it was like I personally experienced. It was like I personally experienced it's a like a side plot, like the side story. I was trying to shoehorn into the main narrative to try to make it work philosophically. Ended up being the entire book, the entire narrative. My character, my FI character, needed to inhabit to feel complete. That's the best way I can put it. And so it's it's like I did it. I didn't. Okay, I'm just gonna say it the way it felt, not the way I'm not gonna. I'm just gonna say it the way it felt.
That's fine. It's fine. This is your
Okay,
story, man. You know.
okay. It did not feel like, for the first time in my life, it did not feel like I was choosing a narrative, a framework, a story, a philosophy.
Yeah.
It's like one of my old discarded frameworks came back and chose me, and it was like, about darn time. Welcome home. Right here I am. Like, oh, hold on, wait, you were the subplot, and it's like, nope, I was the main thing all along. Like, psych. And I was like, oh, wow, right? But I had to legitimately throw it away for it to come back, right?
Yeah.
There was no guarantee. It was an absolute leap of faith, just a gamble. It was not. It's right. At least to my forefront of my conscious mind. Subconsciously, of course, we understand it's far more complicated than that, right?
Yeah.
Right. And so, and so, but it is a case of it is uh, fundamentally, I would say the thing that makes it real is faith and experience.
Yeah.
not like because when it was still a philosophy for me, when my framework, when my thing, I still believe the story, the plot line I have. When I was using it without the experience and without the faith, it was empty. It was dead. It was I was still on life support, right?
Yeah.
It's like, but when it's like the real thing is the fact that I saw God with my own two eyes. It's like, and now the dingy, cheap kind of like supplement I get along with that is this framework that I believe, but even saying I believe it is kind of cheapens what I'm trying to convey. It's like,
Yeah.
right, and it's like I saw God, I spoke to Him, right, and it's like, and He is me in a certain sense, right,
Yeah.
and I am all of us, right, and it's and nothing else I'm going to say at this point make it any clearer right now. That's
No,
I
that's your
think that's
story,
as
man. That's your experience, right?
yeah,
So, and as I said, what you experience is the truest thing that you'll ever know. So,
yep. And I'm aware that any attempt to wrap it in language makes it less true
right.
because it's like so. Long story short, had an experience, have a narrative that I can wrap that experience in without depression or cognitive dissonance
Mm-hmm.
for today.
For
And that's
today,
it. There we go. There we go.
because
Long story short,
long
TLDR.
story short. Okay. Okay. Yeah. If I were to, what's the word? Relate. I don't think I found a plot yet. So, um, I think that's the struggle. So, because to me they're all the same. So, um, but I guess, thinking. I could either embrace what I am now, or I could try to change it. Right. I think the problem is that I will always have cognitive dissonance as long as I always believe that reality isn't real, right? Or as long as I have the belief that reality is real, um, because a foundational principle of everything I have is that reality isn't real. So if I don't think about it, it's fine. But then when I get on the subject, it's like I have to kind of reassert myself back into like, okay, you know, I'm here, things are fine. Um, that's a weird one. That's a big one. So
I think reality isn't real, and this is chicken and the egg problem, right? Like because what makes it's like if you're reading Harry Potter, what makes the magic real there is the context, the plot, the narrative, right?
yeah,
If you're reading the Dresden Files, if you're reading Sherlock Holmes, just like whatever story you're reading, what makes the narrative real, no matter how sci-fi or fantasy or mystery and paranormal it is the plot, and then how consistent you feel like the experience is within that world, and then in our lived reality, it's how well you can like yourself right into that. And so it's like when you say that reality isn't real, I think it's another way of you saying what you've already said was that you haven't found all the plots are the same to you. It's like you could be in a Harry Potter universe, you could be Dresden Files, you could be sci-fi, you could be Star Wars, you could be
yeah,
it's like all these different TI plots. It's like And because I could inhabit any of them, I inhabit none of them, and they're all not real and
Yeah.
kind of real and kind of not real, like Schrodinger's plotline.
Yeah.
You know,
Schrodinger's plotline.
Schrodinger's.
You know what's interesting? I've been wanting to share this for a bit, but it hasn't come up yet. Um, I did make one nice connection. We talked about symbols with John Gage a while back. Uh, that conversation actually helped me uh, believe in Jesus Christ a little deeper. Because kind of like how flags are symbol of a country and vice versa, it's kind of back and forth. Christ is that, but to humanity, right? He's a symbol, if anything. So, how deep that goes is unsure. Um, but
If his prevalence, if his prevalence in Western civilization, then even in his adaptation in all non-Western civilizations is anything to judge by, it's a whole lot deeper
yeah,
than we might
yeah,
might be aware of.
yeah. And so, and so,
Deep,
so,
deep
say what?
one. Okay, random ti any weirdness. Okay, do you know how they say curse words run on the same circuits that a dog barking, cat hissing do? It's
Yeah,
like it's curse words are actually, especially if you say one, if you get hurt, surprised,
yeah,
is actually not a it's actually not a word. It's more of an interjection. It's more like or wow or right.
yeah,
And and they say sometimes if somebody gets bad enough brain damage, they'll repeat curse words ad infinitum, right, without context.
yeah,
Certain kind of brain injuries, and then you understand how like, people use Jesus right as a curse word, and then you talked about deep, and then we talk about so so he is, as far as I know, one of, if not the only symbolic figure in the world that is consistently as a curse word, right? And if that's not deep, at least in some sense, what else?
right,
What else? What else could be, right?
right, right.
Maybe confirmation bias, maybe not. Who knows?
Oh no, I will say there's probably some truth to that. You know, what we say and how we say it creates, it creates an influence to those around us, right? So in a way, that's kind of how magic works. You know, by communication is technically a type of magic if we're going into that kind of, because there's no good way to explain it, right? Because I'm trying to share with you a meaning, you understand that meaning, and we're able to connect that way, right? That form of connection, that's kind of a type of that's magical. We're not sure how we connect, but we do. So what we say and how we say it can technically, the way that we influence each other through our conversation can change how people perceive us and how we influence people. So when it comes to curse words and Jesus and God being becoming part of that, that would be a show of just right of how deep he was able to go. So
How deep that spell went into the human psyche.
yeah. So, and I guess the question is what would a world without God look like, right? And the irony is that it's impossible to live in a world without God, because everyone there's the fi God, beliefs come before logic. People will attach to belief systems first rather than logic. You have to work, like, it takes time and progress to work yourself out of a belief system. So beliefs come first, logic second. So basically, theoretically, it would probably be impossible to take that belief of God out. And even in today, if you try to with people who don't believe in God, they just replace that belief system with another belief system and attach that type of devotion to a concept instead.
And if they don't, if they are existentially needy, they fall into serious despair.
Yeah, yeah. So it's actually really hard to live in a state of constant disbelief of everything, I guess. So you have to do a lot of checks and balances on yourself all the time. Um, and ironically, it's healthier to believe in something than not something, right? So, uh, because if you're happier by believing something, then you are um, being happier is healthier than being unhappy, and believing in something makes you happier than not believing something. Therefore, believing in something is healthier than not believing in something because uh, being happier is healthier than being unhappy. So there you go. Equations, logic,
Yeah.
math. Look at that. I just used math on emotions.
Yeah. You use math to communicate emotions, right?
Yes. Congratulations. So, random side plot. A lot of these conversations have also been helping me communicate a lot of the this flow as well. So, thank you for that.
Hey, like legitimately, I know as cliche as it sounds, legitimately my pleasure. I
Yeah,
very much enjoy having these discussions
yeah. So, I'm glad you're
with
enjoying it.
almost anybody else. Like around this time, I'm in bed already. I'm not even tired right now.
You're not even tired. You've been having a jolly good time. Uh, man. Well, it's 10 o'clock.
Say
Uh,
again.
it's basically bedtime.
Yep.
Um, I have to go to work at 6 tomorrow morning. That's why I say. I have a question real quick though. The next chapter. Did you read it?
Yeah, I read it, but there's nothing in there.
Yeah, I didn't get anything either. So
Got nothing. Maybe
yeah,
one note. Let me go check. If so, I'll read it out. Then we're move on. Next week we'll do chapter 7. Let's see, chapter 6. Gilbertian light. Gilbertian gemstones. The humanists and light. Oh yeah. The humanists and light. So the one takeaway I took away from chapter 6 was the humanists and their obsession with light. The humanists were also they brought about the period of history that we call um, the Enlightenment, right?
yeah,
Um, and then the Enlightenment, which precedes the Enlightenment, which precedes the Reformation. Um, and then they talk about how the humanists they had this obsession with using light and light imagery, like a lot of their paintings, a lot of their depictions, a lot of their even their literature. And so I just took note of that. The correlation between the associations that humans make in their mind towards consciousness, towards science, towards light, and are associating that with sight, associating that with masculinity, masculine principles, order, structure, um, thinking, virtue, etc., etc. And so, um, unless there is something we want, unless we want, in order for us to comment on chapter 6 in depth, we would have to make a tangent off the subject of colors and color psychology onto the distinctive subheading like about light and history and humanists and gemstones, which I don't know if we want to do. So that's all I have.
Eh, nah. I think that's fine, and I think we would probably come to the same conclusions about generally what the answers are. A lot of them would be kind of what we've already discussed already in previous chapters, just with gemstones instead, I guess. So,
Well,
um,
again, I do think this is an example of him knowing that there's something meaningful under all this color psychology, but he doesn't know what or where to look, and so he captures a whole bunch of signal with the noise. This is a signal chapter, not
yeah, yeah, yeah,
a noise, not signal. Sorry.
yeah. I think the if I had one worry with this book is that if there's a student, if people are using this as a guide, and if there's a student who's reading it, it's going to probably turn the student into like a hoity-toity snob critic because they're going to intellectualize how the art piece looks, and be like, "Oh, this color dynamic is perfect with this shade of lighting, and I see you've done it this way and that way, right?" Um, and again, that's fine. There's no like when it comes to art, art is about expression. Um, but I guess you have to, yeah, you have to know when to over intellectualize it and when to feel it, right? And so, and I think this book is written for people who want to intellectualize it, not necessarily for people who want to feel it. So, but
I
maybe
agree.
we'll go.
And I think even though that's not the author's attitude or intent, I do believe because of the way he writes and communicates,
Yeah.
and because of college students often being young and already prone to stand on airs
Mm-hmm.
and wanting to prescribe and preach and like prove themselves, this will and this can easily end up being a tool for exactly that kind of
Yeah.
attitude, even if the author himself would not endorse it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
I can see it.
But on to the next chapter.
On to chapter 7.
Yes. And our conversation was amazing as it was anyway. So,
Yeah, that's right.
yep. I guess I should ask real quick, and this is still recording, but are you okay with this being posted to YouTube? Some of
Yep.
it was deeper. Okay. All right.
Absolutely.
Just figured I'd
Thanks for
ask.
asking.
So, all right. With that, always a pleasure. You keep being awesome. And then I will see you around. I'll talk to you next week.
All right. See you next week.
Yep.
Good night. Godspeed.
Godspeed.